Texas decided to ban abortion, and this has caused a very measured response from the left, as you can imagine, and we're going to go through it. So to begin, I'm just going to lay out my position on abortion, and I'm going to kind of punt it to a video that will be up later on lotuseaters.com or on our YouTube channel, which is also called Lotus Eaters and then space dot.com. It's the alternate channel we have, in which we do sort of like formal scripted videos, because it basically revolves around the idea that I personally think, from a liberal perspective, the progressives have broken the moral compromise between the Republicans and the progressives on whether abortion should be rare. And so I'm kind of like, well, I think you get what you deserve at this point. If you decided to abandon that compromise, then why should the Republicans not also abandon it and just go full hard on their own principles? And ultimately, abortion is an evil. It's not good to abort a child. I don't know why I have to say that in the modern era, but the progressives seem to have forgotten that. So
but that's why the compromise was good.
That's why the compromise was good.
And rare.
Exactly. So you can go check that out. I'll link it in the description of this. Anyway, so the abortion decision itself was one of the laws proposed by Texas state legislature, which was approved by the Supreme Court because what it does, it was a 5-4 decision for the law to remain in effect, which meant that basically when a heartbeat is detected, which is about 6 weeks normally, this means that they cannot get an abortion. So you can imagine how the left... Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
I mean, we've spoken about this before. I don't really have a strong opinion on abortion, other than there's probably some period in between the conception and the end where you need to cut a line.
You're going to have to draw a line. And I think detecting a heartbeat is actually quite a logical position. It's quite a logical place to put it. If it's got a heartbeat, it's alive. And if it's alive, maybe you shouldn't just kill it for convenience. Just saying. Anyway, so this was taken very, very poorly on the left. For example, as one law professor at Case Western Reserve University said, anti-abortion legislatures are just watching what happens in Texas. And if Texas gets away with this, absolutely, they're going to start passing them all over the country. That's right. Expect abortion bans in California before the year's out.
So it's the slippery slope.
That's exactly what they're making.
They're like, this is a slippery slope.
Oh, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. No, it's not going to be in those insufferable progressive states that everyone's fleeing, because, you know, you're not going to allow that, are you? This is what states' rights was about, if I recall correctly. This was what the great experiment of the states was for. And I thought it was a good idea. And if Texas wants to experiment in this way, well, then that's their right, actually, isn't it?
It's kind of the point of the system as well.
It's kind of the point of the United States. But of course, the more European-minded progressive left don't like decentralization. They like centralization, which is why they're constantly trying to centralize things. Anyway, so already Texas Right to Life anti-abortion groups say that the Supreme Court's decision say that they hope to replicate the success across the nation. Wow, I can't believe that activists on the anti-abortion side want that everywhere. Wow, it's almost like activists on the pro-abortion side want that everywhere as well. And it's almost like there should have been some sort of reasonable compromise made in the middle that the left have abandoned. Anyway, so I guess the question is, what was Joe Biden's opinion on this? Joe Biden being a famous Catholic. Well, we got to hear from Jen Psaki, who doesn't look rattled at all, as you can see her delivering her reply of what Joe Biden thinks. She doesn't look like she's about to have a breakdown or anything, gloriously speaking. She says, so the journalist asks, you know, why does a president support abortion when his own Catholic faith teaches that abortion is wrong?
It's a fair quote.
That's a really great question. And she replies with, he believes that it's a woman's right. It's a woman's body and it's her choice. I know you've never faced those choices and never been pregnant, but for a woman, it's a very difficult thing. Well, it's not difficult if it's not a choice, is it? It's actually really easy. Just saying.
It's also the woman's right to what? Because
kill her baby.
Once it's alive, it's murder. Therefore, no, it's not your right to murder. That doesn't exist.
agree.
Beforehand, when it's not alive, well, then
Sure.
you know that's the argument.
Yeah. And it's actually a lot. It resonates with me a lot more, to be honest. But anyway, so yeah, Kamala Harris had her opinion on this. Last night, the Supreme Court's decision on Texas's thing dealt a significant blow to Roe versus Wade.
I just thought in my head, you know, that it's a woman's right thing.
Yeah.
I just realized you could use that in the Confederacy. You know, it's a state's right. It's a state right to what? To have slaves. That was the argument.
They are essentially, as you rightly point out, making the argument for slavery. It may be a significant moral wrong to end a human life, an unborn human life, but, and it's the but that always matters, isn't it?
Like it's a moral wrong to own people as slaves.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're exactly right there. And that's a great point, Callum. But anyway, she says, we will not stand by and allow our nation to go back to the days of back alley abortions. We will use every lever to defend the right to safe and legal abortion. We will fight this. That's right. It's either back alley abortions or abortion up until the point of birth, and you've got to choose one. There's nothing in between there, Kamala. There's nothing that women can do or anything like that. There's literally no other choice. And we don't want back alley abortions.
Contraception doesn't exist, nor does the Texas law allow up to 6 weeks.
Personal responsibility doesn't exist. You know, taking it, right, I had unprotected sex last night. Maybe I should do something about it, like taking a morning after pill. No. That's a back alley abortion you're looking at. So we need abortion clinics on every corner. No, sorry, that's bull.
Also, you'll notice how the rare part doesn't exist there. Safe and legal abortion, full stop.
Oh, yes. And that's what the video we talked about earlier is talking about. Anyway, so what's AOC's opinion on this? AOC's opinion, of course, is not just, well, I mean, maybe there's something to talk about. No. AOC is going hard on the pro-baby murdering angle, right? Now, now is not the time to feel hopeless or helpless. Now is the time to act. All across Texas, grassroots organizers have been protecting their neighbors and the right to choose. But protecting their neighbors? Oh, that was another thing I forgot to mention. Right, so the enforcement of this law will actually be allowed to be done in a civil manner. As in, if someone believes that someone else is getting an abortion after 6 weeks, they will be allowed to sue them.
What? But have I got to have a relationship with that person or just be that neighbor?
Nope. It's exactly the same rules as hate speech laws in the UK.
That's amazing.
If someone perceives, not related to the event, if someone perceives that it has happened, they can sue them.
I'm moving to Texas, just make money doing that.
I'm not even in favor of that, but it's just
absurd.
Yeah, of course. But it's just such an amusing mirror image of what the left have done to this country that I'm just like, well, that's interesting. But so now's the time to act. They need us. We made a split page for 8 key organizations, blah, blah, right? And if you go to the next one, she says, in the last 24 hours, our supporters have raised $185,000 for Texas abortion organizations and made 100,000 check-in calls to Ida flood victims in our New York City district. Because there's a flood going on in New York at the moment. So you just wonder, well, why couldn't you have done that for, say, homelessness? Like, this could have been done any time. If you can just raise this kind of money out of the ground.
Specifically, your mother.
Yeah,
who was homeless for a period.
Oof. That's below the belt. Anyway,
she did it.
That's true. Let this be your sign. Find an organizing community, roll up your sleeves, and get to work. That's weird. It sounds like she personally is going to be aborting babies, doesn't it? If we get to the next one, John. Like,
God.
Just, look, it's not even legal in Texas now, love. But just calm down. We've got a lot of babies to abort here. We're going to have to get to work.
Me personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
But this is the thing. This weird zealotry for the ability to murder children is just...
Because that's the thing. Like, I would have always laughed at the position. You know, we heard Republicans back in the day being like, they're all baby murderers. And, I mean...
That's not. Exactly. You'd be like, that's not. They're acting in good faith. They're women who are struggling, blah, blah. And then you get this kind of zealotry.
And arguing that it should be up to the point of birth.
Yeah,
and
the day for before, no other reason. Just because they want it. Just no particular medical reason or, it doesn't even have to have a family circumstance. Yeah, I just feel like it.
Stab.
Shout your abortion. And what was the thing on Comedy Central?
If you want an abortion, get one.
Oh, God. That was the thing. I was just like, yeah, you know what? This was a mistake, right? This was a mistake. Anyway, moving on after AOC is up to her arms in dead baby parts. Ayanna Presley.
This is awful.
It is awful, but this is what they're doing. This is what they are doing, right? They're not approaching this with any kind of dignity or humility for the understanding that what they're arguing for is the ending of a human life that's not even born, can't have done anything wrong.
No.
The baby has done nothing wrong. And they're like, yeah, kill it.
90s Dems didn't come up with this kind of...
No.
Non-humility.
And if they had, it would never have gone this far. Right, and they have used the 90s Dems as their kind of shield and snuck in, and now the 90s Dems are obsolete. Right, we're right at the front. Kill babies. I'm not having it. Not having it. It's disgusting. The attitude is disgusting. They are bad people, and they should feel like bad people when you're talking to them. Right. Anyway, so Ayanna Presley, our liberty, our humanity, and our bodily autonomy are not up for debate. Right. If you can't abort a baby, you're not a human.
I'm hearing the slave owner again, man. Our liberty, humanity, and our bodily autonomy. This is my property.
It really is. How is it different? How is it different? Right?
God.
That's the thing. So literally, if she can't own slaves, she's not a human. That's where she's at. If she can't abort a baby, she's not even a human. Right?
Am I even an American?
Yeah, exactly. She's going to start making the argument for states' rights in any second now, right? So the next one is Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, right? Who just tweeted out, abortion care is health care.
No, come on.
Yeah, right. But the assumption under that means that therefore pregnancy is a disease. Getting pregnant is a disease if abortion is healthcare.
We're not calling it abortion care.
Well, they are now.
Come on, we're not describing abortion as a care.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know there's the extreme circumstances.
We're going to get rid of that. It's very caring.
There's
it's awful.
The minority of positions where the mother's life is in danger or rape or incest. But that's,
I agree.
Come on.
Yeah, when it comes, I still totally agree with that. It's like when it comes down to medical necessity.
I think Texas law also still allows that.
It may well. I actually know. I've seen them complaining that it doesn't.
I find that highly unlikely.
When it comes down to medical necessity, I can completely understand that being a thing because it's not a moral choice, right? You're not failing as a human being by making bad decisions, having sex with someone unprotected, and then being like, well, at least I can just clean up this mess with a blender. You know, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. It's really, really awful, right? And the thing is, this woman has had an abortion, right? So New York Times tweeted out an article of her talking about her abortion from 2018, right? And it's amazing, right? So she had a son called Janak, who, when he was born, was 1 pound 14 ounces, which is very, very light, very, very young, right? And so against all odds, he survived. Fantastic. And then some years later, she met a wonderful man who's now her husband, and she wanted more children, but in numerous conversations with doctors, she was told that any future pregnancy would also be high risk and could result in a birth similar to Janak's. Now, Janak was fine, so it's not too much of a threat there, I suppose. And so they took precautions, but in the end, she did fall pregnant. And so she says, it was excruciating. I wanted children, but I wasn't ready, nor was I fully recovered. I was so grateful that Janak survived, but I could not tempt fate again. I could not simply hope for the best. I had the decision based on the tremendous risks that had been clearly laid out for me. I decided I could not responsibly have a baby. It was a heartbreaking decision, but the only one I was capable of making. So there's a risk that my baby won't survive the pregnancy, so I'll abort it. That's her position.
How late was she pregnant?
She doesn't say.
That's interesting.
I don't know. But it's just like, what a solution to the problem. There's a chance your kid might die. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I have no moral respect for any of these women. Like, if they were making the 90s liberal arguments, I'd be like, yeah, okay, fair points. But they're not.
They want to treat this like it's, getting rid of a used car.
Yeah. I mean, do you know, like, I'm sure that her baby, were given the opportunity to weigh in on this, would be like, I'd rather risk it. I'd rather take the risk of not surviving than being killed, if that's okay, just because you're slightly worried that, and don't get me wrong, right? And I'm speaking as a man whose wife has had 2 miscarriages, right? I know it's not easy. It's very difficult. But guaranteeing that the child doesn't survive is probably not as good as taking the risk that it might, especially as it previously has worked for you.
I want to make that point as well, which is if we can understand why a miscarriage is something to be,
Well, yeah, well, no. Okay. You got to go watch our other video that will be up at about 4 or 5 o'clock. Anyway, so Washington Post, not taking this well. Texas abortion law is a nightmare for women and a warning to the nation. Did you forget that Texas women are in favor of it? Did you forget that Texas women don't like abortion because they're Christians? Did you realize that not all women are Californians?
Yeah.
They're not all like weird degenerates who don't care about children at all. Some of them actually really like children. Some of them really hate the idea of abortion. They're called Christians, actually. And maybe the Americans need to start thinking about which road they've taken. Would it actually be better to be a Christian country or this? Anyway, I love the way that they frame this. Again, total on suicide watch, practically, right? The Texas abortion scheme has all the elements of today's MAGA Republican Party. Good, right? The contempt for women's right to control their lives. Sorry, Sorry, no one's saying that you can't control who you allow between your legs. No one's saying that, right? The problem is there are consequences to these things, aren't there? Encouragement of their followers to harass those who reject their ideological directives. Oh, really? Cowardly evasion of legal processes and gross hypocrisy. Wow, you sound like you're complaining that the MAGA group are fighting like the left. That's your problem, isn't it? They're acting like leftists, and you hate it because you're losing.
Well, acting as in, doing
As in
some of the same things.
playing politics in the same way that the left is playing politics and has been playing politics for at least the last decade.
Because usually there are some things beyond the pale, as in actions, and left's done all them, and the right are like, well, okay, if that's the new battle game, well, we'll do them too.
Yeah, and now the right's starting to win. As for the latter, it's the same state in which Republican Governor Greg Abbott prohibited school districts and blah, 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 something else. All right, so Democrats in 2022 must argue that Republicans would do to the entire country what they have done to Texas, hamper life-saving mandates for vaccines and masks, harass and endanger women. Yes, I'm sure that's what they're going to frame it as. And, of course, suppress the vote. Yeah, it's all these
Like Trump's going to be at the clinic with a sign or something.
Christian mothers are going to be like, yeah, we're going to oppress women. No, and hampering life-saving mandates for vaccines and masks, harass and endanger women, of course, suppress the vote to make it harder to throw them out of office. Yes, that's right. If we can't abort babies up until the point of birth, then you're suppressing the vote. Very sane, very sensible. You clearly weren't furiously typing this as all the panic chemicals are running through your brain or anything.
Surely it's the opposite.
Yes.
If you abort all the babies, then they don't have the vote.
That's true. And if you override what appear to be democratic desires of the Christian people of Texas, men and women.
But also if you disproportionately do this in areas with certain communities that majority vote Democrat.
Well, we're not going to bring Margaret Sanger into this right now. We can talk about her another time.
Right.
But she wasn't very progressive. Anyway. The main complaint is the Republicans are fighting like Democrats, and also the easy rejoinder to this for any Republican who's watching is just states' rights. You don't have to do this in California, don't have to do this in New York. We're not mandating it anywhere. It's where people want to ban abortion in places like Alabama and various other sort of like the central and southern states where they're heavily Christian and they think abortion is a moral evil, if you can even remember such a thing, leftists.
But it's the same thing with universal healthcare. Like if leftists want to argue for that, okay, do it on one state and then expand it.
Yeah, do state healthcare. There's nothing wrong with that, but instead they have to have everyone doing it. And that's why they're like, oh my God, the Republicans can do this everywhere. Why? Because if we had our way, we'd do it everywhere. That's what it is. And so the Republicans can easily say, well, this is just for the Republican states. You can, in your Democrat states, you can have all of these moral abominations taking place on every street corner if you want. It's not our problem because you're disgusting. Don't be surprised, though, when we put up a wall and refuse Californians entry into our state. Anyway, moving on. So Chris Cuomo had a great tweet here. I love this. Right. This is a tweet from Carlos Chatman, who says, if a fetus, and this is where they're like, oh, now we're going to get clever about it. Watch my law professor at Washington University. Watch my big brain try and crack holes in your argument. It's like, yeah, okay, watch this. She says, if a fetus is a person at 6 weeks pregnant, is that when the child support starts? Is that also when you can't deport the mother if she's carrying a US citizen? Because, of course, America has birthright citizenship. Can I ensure a 6 week fetus and collect if I miscarry? Just figuring out if we're going there, we should go all in. How about Chad, yes?
Yeah, what's wrong with any of that?
Exactly. Right. The first thing is that we can just say yes to all of that and be like, okay, well, then fine. Because they're going to be marginal cases. There are going to be so few of those that actually occur that it's not going to be worth even talking about, right? But she's trying to crack a break in the logic. But even then, right, no one said that that was the thing. Like, is that when she says, is it a person at 6 weeks? We're not talking about whether it's a person. We're talking about whether it's a human. Because person is a social category to which we ascribe to things. For example, we kind of think of our dogs as people. They're part of the family. They have a particular position in the family. We personalize them. We treat them as if they have emotions and thoughts and feelings, and because they do, they're good boys. And this is why Biden leaving a bunch of dogs in the hands of the Taliban was such an abominable thing to do on his own right? And so it's not about whether they're a person, because that implies a sort of social relationship. Obviously, you don't have a social relationship with a fetus. The question is whether it's human. So we're not talking about the personhood of these things. We're talking about whether it's human, and it is human, and why we shouldn't just kill humans out of convenience. But so we've got multiple ways of just absolutely washing this argument. It's such a weak argument. And the funny thing as well, if we get to the next one, this is great, right? So can we scroll up? Oh no, this is a reply to Chris Cuomo, right? And so you can see to this one, right? This is a Rachel Maddow statement. if they make abortions illegal, then they should make it illegal for men to desert women after getting them pregnant. If women can't back out of pregnancies, men shouldn't be able to either. Wow, that's conservative. She's just invented the shotgun wedding. That is gold, absolute gold. They have come to the deeply Republican conservative position. Well, if women can't back out, then men can't. Chad,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, again, yes. This is, you get what you deserve. You know, like, sorry, but like if we're coming full circle to this, that's fine. You know. Anyway, next one is, of course, men shouldn't be making laws about women's bodies. Just repeated over and over because that makes it true. And Jack Posobiec had the best rejoinder to this. This is true. We can get that. Men can pass abortion bans because we can get pregnant too. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're wrong. Get what you deserve. You did this. You made the male pregnant emoji, not the Republicans, not the right. None of us. No, you brought this in. Yeah. And so now, because I can potentially get pregnant as a man and men can get pregnant, I now get to morally legislate on abortion. So thank you, leftists. Did this to yourselves. Anyway, the next one was a fantastic one. So if we can get up Joy Reid's tweet quickly, just so I can read it out because I've messed up my notes because I'm an idiot. The tweet that Ash is replying to, yeah. So
Joy Reid's tweet.
No, Joy Reid. Yeah, the tweet that she's replying to there. Just so I can't see it properly. Oh, no, I think I can. Right. So no, it's all right. You don't have to do anything. It says Texas is basically a small Soviet republic at this point, with neighbors spying on neighbors, hoping to collect a cash bounty, in addition to being an apartheid state for non-white voters.
What?
Jesus Christ! Right.
What?
What woman or person of color could possibly feel safe there? Say nothing of the gun proliferation. Again, doesn't understand the Republican mindset at all.
And keep you safe, you idiot.
Exactly. Right. And I love the way they think that women don't want to feel safe because they're actually defended. But I imagine thinking that women feel safe in New York.
You can't get a handgun license to hold.
Exactly.
Easily. I mean,
Exactly.
John Stossel demonstrated this.
Imagine wanting to be safe in thinking you're safe in New York and not in a Republican state.
The one
right?
company that is doing the most for people of color and women's safety is Smith & Wesson, probably.
Is Smith & Wesson.
Oh, Smith & Wesson. Sorry.
Anyway, Ash Sarkar's amazing response to this was, the Soviets legalized abortion in 1920, didn't you know? That's terrible. And they didn't just legalize abortion like, there was no contingencies on it. It was just flat. You can just get abortions. And so it's just, right, okay, that's awful. And the next one as well is a great point. Abortion is legal for the first 12 weeks in Catholic Ireland and in later stages where the women's health is threatened. GOP Texas restricts abortion more than Catholic Ireland. Vote straight Democrat ticket to keep abortion safe and legal in the US. Well, that's a great condemnation of Ireland, isn't it? Really, Catholic Ireland. You're gonna be upstaged by the Texans. Really? They're virtually a blue state at this point and they're kicking your ass. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. That's what. Come on, prove me wrong. Anyway, so the next one, I love this. I posted. So I've got a new Facebook page. Go follow me on Facebook. It's Carl Benjamin. I figure that not appropriate to continue using the Sargon page. Anyway, so this is great, right? Get on birth control now. Any form that is reliable. Oral contraceptives, NuvaRing, Norplant, IUD, something now. That was always allowed. Like
the Jerry meme.
Literally the Jerry. That was always allowed. In fact, that was preferable. That was always preferable to murdering a baby. I don't know why I have to say that, but that was always fine, right? And you have so many options. There are so many different options for women, not that many options for men, but so many options. So you can make the man wear a condom, or you can go on birth control, or you can get like a coil, or all of these other things, or you can get a morning after pill that makes you feel sick for a day, but it prevents a baby from forming. And so there's no moral issue with any of those. Every conservative Republican can sign off on all of that. You can do all of that, and you should do all of that. And the fact that you haven't really implies that you're morally deficient people. You're like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to kill it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kill it. That's an awful, awful thing, and you are awful, awful people. Like, never forget that you're terrible, terrible people, right? And so what do the terrible people do? Well, they're like, oh, we're going to have to fight back here. We're going to have to fight back. We're going to flood the whistleblower website, which is where the start, making the claims for these things, with Shrek memes and fake reports and porn. It's like, Shrek memes? Shrek's like the most far-right movie character I can think of.
What?
anti-immigration, anti-government control. Like, get off my lawn. Like, the state's got no claim on the things I do. You know? I don't.
And you got Shrek 2 and whatnot, where he gets a family and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a family man. You know, he's pro-hierarchy, marries a princess. Like, I'm just saying, Shrek ain't your boy. You know, that's all I'm pointing out.
But also, like, this is a negative. Like, the guys working at the whistleblowing agency are just be like, funny Shrek meme. And just carry on.
You know what? I do love Shrek. You're right. But that's what, and the very worst thing, you have to realize, right? You're not being paid to do that. And so your energy levels will drop off, whereas they're being paid to just delete, pass along, delete.
Copy, send to friends.
They get paid,
Delete.
you know, so that's not going to work, basically. Anyway, what does this mean, Callum? And I realize this segment's going on, but there's so much good stuff, right? This means we're not going to have to watch The Handmaid's Tale anymore. You get the next one, John? Because we're living it.
I've never watched The Handmaid's Tale.
Best utopian fiction I've seen.
Oh, okay.
The premise is most of the world's women become infertile, and so those women that are fertile are for some reason treated like slaves, and I don't think that's how.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
They become highly wealth.
Well, exactly. They'd be
highly desired.
Exactly. They'd be the very top of the pyramid. They'd have all the wealthiest and most handsome men, and they would be the ones basically in control of all of society, kind of like it is now. But so but it's dystopian fiction written by Margaret Atwood because she's a radical feminist and she enjoys fantasizing about being oppressed by the patriarchy, I guess.
Sounds like a moron.
Yeah. But obvious nonsense. But of course, this resonates with other morons, feminists, and misogynists. So, the next one, if we can get the next one up, outlawing abortion, forcing all women to bring pregnancies to term, deputizing everyone as enforcers so that women live in a constant state of fear, unsure in who to trust. No comparisons to The Handmaid's Tale aren't overblown. They're calls to action. All of this is just calls to avoid personal responsibility, though, isn't it? Because all the conservative women, they're not thinking this. They don't think this. They think this is a good thing because they think they should be responsible for the actions that they take. And they don't think that murdering babies is good. But of course, all of this talk of The Handmaid's Tale, you might think, well, that's just feminists being ridiculous. But
Hang on a sec. Haven't the leftist women got to ask this of their own daughters?
What do you mean?
Well, surely if you're a leftist mother, even they are going to be interested in their daughter getting pregnant. Yeah. And, not just going for abortion every time because they care about their health.
Yeah.
In which case, are they the Handmaid's Tale, rulers of their own kingdom?
If you don't kill my grandchild, then I disown you.
Right.
Who knows what leftist mothers think? But anyway, so The Handmaid's Tale may well be considered ridiculous, but there are things that are more ridiculous than comparing this law and to The Handmaid's Tale. If we get to the next one, John, it's because The Handmaid's Tale is, of course, white supremacy. We're Becoming a Handmaid's Tale is actually super white-centered take that completely ignores that we're living in a struggle against genocide and slavery that's been going on for over 500 years.
I could just listen to Tariq Nasheed in my ear going, Negro baby Holocaust, as he would say.
Well,
it's like the black nationalists are very much anti-abortion.
And they're right to be so on this one. But yes, if you think A Handmaid's Tale is shocking, wait until you learn the history of black women in America. Don't get me wrong, she's not wrong. The history of black women in America has not been a fun one.
Black babies in America in the last,
50 years or so. Yeah, that's been terrible too. So anyway, I wanted to finish this segment on a segment that was done on GB News. So this was a discussion between a Christian woman and an abortionist. And I call her an abortionist because her opinions are monstrous. Let's play the first clip.
And Hilary Freeman, journalist, agony aunt and novelist. Hilary, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's your reaction to this court verdict?
I'm absolutely horrified. I mean, to me, it is like Gilead. It's The Handmaid's Tale. It's the start of women's rights being oppressed, rolled back, all our rights going. I can't really see that much difference between what's happened in Texas and what's going on in Afghanistan. It's just a different method, really.
And why do you make that parallel? I mean, what is the concern? Because, many are thinking about the unborn child, of course.
Well, a 6-week-old fetus, embryo, in fact, is not a child. A heartbeat doesn't make something human. And a 6-week-old embryo is not viable. Many pregnancies are lost naturally at that stage. It's not. I don't understand where that time has been picked from. A heartbeat doesn't mean anything.
Hang on, if it can die, it should die.
Just saying, a heartbeat is a necessary condition for a living human.
But also the argument there she's making, presumably she's like of the position that once it can survive outside the womb, therefore it should, that should be the limit for abortion. But that's just the argument of like, if it could die outside, therefore it should be able to die now.
Yes.
But then there are lots of people who could die in those situations, but we keep them alive.
Positively ridiculous. Yeah, John, we'll get to that in a minute. I'm queuing that up actually, right? And so I love this framing. A heartbeat doesn't mean anything. It means that they're alive, you psychopath. It's how we distinguish the living from the dead, is whether they have a heartbeat or not. And the point is, all of her arguments are piss weak. And she knows it. She's just like, well, so, you're not in an echo chamber. You're not going to get people going, oh yeah, I know what you mean, when you can't fill in the details because your arguments are bad and you should feel bad. Let's go for clip 2.
What are the other real-world implications for women if the law changes?
Well, basically, we'll go back to a situation where women will be forced to have backstreet abortions, because banning abortion doesn't stop women having abortions. It doesn't actually cut down on abortions. It actually makes them just unsafe.
Love it. Love everything about this.
But they just didn't ban them. Like, they're still legal for 6 weeks.
They are. But banning abortions absolutely did reduce the number of abortions. Right? Hugo found the data on this the other day. It was somewhere estimated 200,000 or something, where now it's like 900,000. So that absolutely did reduce that. And of course it does, right? But the argument that she's presenting here is, if we make something illegal, people will commit crimes. Therefore, we shouldn't make things illegal. That's ridiculous. That's an argument against the concept of law itself. That's absurd. You're an idiot. Absolute idiot, right? And again, there is a third way, a middle way between women aborting till the point of birth or, getting backstreet abortions, and that's called personal responsibility. Can you imagine women taking personal responsibility?
No, they are literally forced to go into the back street.
That's literally the feminist opinion. Women can't take responsibility. They can't do what they ought to do. That's her opinion. How could you expect something of women? How could you expect virtue of women? How could you expect, women to take the morning after pill or use contraception or anything like that? Or, God forbid, raise the child they conceived through voluntary action. Just saying, God forbid that women take responsibility for the decisions they've made there. No, the point, though, that she's failing to understand is it is actually to reduce the number of women who get abortions. That's the point of all of this. Anyway, let's play clip 3.
Where might you draw the line? I mean, what is a reasonable term at which to say at that point you don't abort?
Get ready.
Well, actually, my view is that abortion should be legal from up till term, because then you're not controlling women's bodies. I think last year, in the 2018 statistics, there were only something like 289 late terminations after 24 weeks. So women don't do it.
Right. Well, if women don't do it, then they don't need it, do they? That's the simple answer. If women, as you say, women don't do it, then they don't need that. And 289 is 289 viable babies who are murdered. I'm sorry, no. Absolutely.
If you're controlling women at all, that's unacceptable.
Yep.
So when we pass a law that says no murder,
that's controlling women.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And by that standard, why can't women just murder their own children? Women happen to be the people who murder their own children most.
I think it's babies. I think afterwards it's men, but
sure. But
I can't remember.
When it comes to young children, so this is her just asserting her ideological premise that the only reason that we should have abortion up until the point of birth is because of controlling women's bodies. Well, I think that there are controls on people's bodies. Women being people means that they have to subject themselves to some kind of controls, because in all questions of rights and duties, these things conflict between individuals, and so a middle ground has to be found between them. So women have a responsibility to stop at certain points, men have a responsibility to stop at certain points, and there's a social negotiation we go through. But let's get to the truly monstrous position that she holds. Go for clip 4.
What's the difference between an unborn baby that's perhaps, 8 or 9 pounds in weight outside of the mother's body versus inside the mother's body, if we talk about a term pregnancy?
Because when it's inside the mother's body, the mother is keeping it alive. The mother is feeding it. The mother is giving it all the nutrients. She's carrying it around. It's like a parasite, really, when you're pregnant. When it's outside even when a baby's born, a baby may be born at full term, but it's not actually going to be able to survive unless it's looked after, is it? So, what does viability really mean?
It's a parasite. What does viability really mean? What an absolutely horrendous human being she is, right? for a start, I love the way she's acting like she's some sort of self-sustaining island. As in, she's not viable on her own. If you dropped her on a desert island, she'd die. In the same way a baby would die. Because she doesn't know how to create, she doesn't know how to farm, she doesn't know how to build a house. None of the things that she owns, she made, she relies on other people in all ways, right? So don't give me any of this bloody self-sustaining viability bollocks, right? That's nonsense, right? But she is right that viability, therefore, is no standard at all. And if it's no standard at all, if it doesn't really mean anything, then we shouldn't use it. The question is it a human? Does it have a heartbeat? If the answer is yes, then you probably shouldn't kill it. Especially if it's done nothing wrong. I don't know why we have to make this any more complicated. And so there we go. We shouldn't just murder for convenience, and maybe women should take responsibility for the things they do. Checkmate. Get wrecked. Love it.
Well, that's like next level, like Juche. In Juche, North Korean ideology, there's a idea of self-reliance, so the state should be entirely self-reliant of all other states. Yeah. And the idea is if you're not living that life on a personal basis, just...
Yeah. Well, all of their arguments are terrible and make them look like absolute moral abominations.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to prelotuseaters.com and get access to all our premium content.
Things like our book club, where we examine classics like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and examine the themes that underpin it, and now we're getting worryingly close to that, or modern books like Mark Sidwell's The Long March, which is how exactly we ended up in the current cultural situation we're in and what conservatives can do about it. Or you can check out the other series we have, such as our Contemplation series, where Hugo and Josh decided to, in the latest one, have a look at an examination on the ways that other elections have been rigged for no reason at all. Or you can check out our Epoch series, which is one of my personal favorites because this is where I get to talk about history. And I love talking about just random things from history. And one of the great things we can do with this series is talk about those things that aren't so often discussed. So, I mean, you can talk about Xerxes' army, the vast army that invaded Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars. Or we can go through things like Herodotus' view on the Scythians. Who are they? You probably don't know, but they used to be quite an important people a long time ago, and they're very, very interesting. We've got some really good reports about them. Or we've got premium podcasts, which is things we generally don't want to put outside of the paywall because we might get in trouble for them, such as the list of things that Alex Jones was right about. Or we do just very interesting discussions because there are things that we do lots of work on. Another one is that I'm particularly proud of is where Christopher Hitchens, the famous new atheist, would have fallen during the modern culture wars, because he probably wouldn't have been very woke. But we also have lots of interviews and articles and other things on the website that you can sign up to enjoy, and we're really proud of them.
So if any of that sounds good to you, go over to lotuseaters.com and sign up for as little as £5 a month to support us, keep the show going, and also to get access to all the content. Thank you and goodbye.